Cloud. Okay. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for our LinkedIn webinar. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Chaim Shapiro, who is the I'm reading something, so sorry, I'm looking down, but he's the Executive Director of the Undergraduate Career Services at Touro University, a freelance writer, a public speaker, a LinkedIn consultant, and a board certified coach specializing in career coaching. Chaim earned his master's degree in college student personnel from Loyola University in Chicago and also studied in the Institutional Leadership and Policy Studies PhD program at the University of California, Riverside Graduate School of Education. He has more than 22 years of experience working in college administration, and he is definitely a LinkedIn expert. So he's a great treat for all of you to learn a little bit more about LinkedIn. So I'm going to turn it right over to you, Chaim.
Thank,
Thank you so much for joining us.
thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm also a huge Chicago Cubs fan, by the way. I'll put that in there. That's what I do with my free time as much. And that season's about to start. But thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back and to be giving you a presentation. Just give people an idea of what we're going to be planning on doing today. Well, I think to start, it's usually the first 40 minutes or so of the session. I'll go straight up and down the LinkedIn profile and show you how to maximize all the parts of your LinkedIn profile to get noticed by recruiters and to present your professional brand. Now, one of the things I think that differentiates me from some of the other folks who do LinkedIn presentations is I do this as a live demo. So as opposed to having slides up here, I'm going to be showing you the functionality of what I'm doing step by step. I don't like talking a lot, so if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat or even jump on and ask your questions. And that's in the middle. You want to see how did you do that? Can you show me that again? I have a general question that you want to ask. Feel free to jump in there and ask those questions because I want to be able to manipulate the platform to show you how to do the things you need to do to be successful. And usually at the end, I try to save a few minutes for questions as well. But after we're done with the profile, I'm going to show you how to find jobs on LinkedIn. And if we have enough time, I'll show you how to find conversations around the areas of importance in your professional field so you can start engaging the decision makers and building a brand reputation for yourself on LinkedIn. So if that sounds good, we're going to jump right into it and get right into your LinkedIn profile. Now, the easiest way to get into the edit mode of your profile is by clicking on your picture, which is right up over here. But what I try to normalize is to go to this little me button over here, click on that, then click View Profile. The reason for that, there's a bunch of other options here. It just gives you the opportunity to do more things if you make yourself accustomed to going in over there. This is the edit mode of my profile, and don't worry, I had a client once who was worried that anybody could access their LinkedIn profile edit mode, but obviously this is password protected and it's only access to yours when you've actually signed in. Now, I want to throw a question out. You're all graduate students, so you're familiar with participating in the classwork. What do you think the three most important parts of your LinkedIn profile are? I like to call them the LinkedIn triumvirate. Anyone want to venture guess at the three most important parts of your profile?
Educational experience.
Educational experience is important because that sells you in terms of what you're able to do in credentialing. But I'm going to go with something even more basic than that because the things that show up on LinkedIn first, the things that show up wherever you show up on LinkedIn are the most important things. There are certain credentials that are exceptionally important that need to be included, but wherever you show up on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn messages that people send and searches, three things show up with you, and therefore those triumvirate are the most important. Those three things are your picture, your name, and this right over here, which is called your LinkedIn headline. So the reason they're the most important is not because necessarily they're the most important part of your profile in terms of selling you, but because everybody sees it. So let's talk about each of those individually. For your LinkedIn profile photo, the question I get most frequently is, what should I be wearing in this picture? Anyone have any thoughts they want to share about what you should be wearing in this picture? And I'll give you a hint. It depends. It's not something where there's a one answer for everybody. So what I usually advise folks to do is to be wearing the clothes you'd be wearing if you went to a networking event where the C-suite, the top level people in the kind of company you're looking to work at would be there. What would you be wearing in that uh, networking event. So for people who are looking into business or law or something like that, it would definitely be a suit and tie. I don't know how that works in public health, what people would normally be wearing. But the other alternative, for example, if you went to a startup like Meta, you wouldn't want to be wearing a suit and tie because that's going to work against you. So they'll look at you and say, here's a person who does not fit with the culture that we have here. So you want to be wearing what you'd be wearing at those kinds of events. If you're meeting the CEO of the hospital or CEO of the company, what clothing would you be wearing in that networking event? So here you have the ability to edit your photo once you have it up there. And you can straighten, you can zoom, you can do all sorts of things here to get it exactly the way that you want and focus it the way that you want. So I think it's important to have a headshot photo. Usually you don't need more than that, maybe a little bit part of the body, but you don't need a full body photo. You can put filters on it if you want. Most people don't do that, but sometimes you can highlight yourself and make the color look a little bit better through that. And one of the other things I also tell people, you don't necessarily need to get a professional photo. One of the ways you can update the photo is simply by clicking on this and using the camera on your computer. Better than the camera on your computer. iPhones are so powerful now on their cameras. Just get a white background and take a professional, have a friend take a professional shot of you. That would suffice for those kinds of things. Things you want to avoid are pictures of yourself, like at a wedding where you have somebody that you're cutting off of the picture, they have a disembodied arm sort of hanging over your head. You want it to be a shot just of you, not of your family, not of your dog. Picture shot of you. So when somebody sees that, they can actually relate to you into that picture. So if you don't have a professional picture, that iPhone against the white background, wearing the clothes that would be appropriate makes the most sense. Okay. And I'm going to move along here and move on to the next part. The next part is your name. Now, name seems very simple. People think, what could be so important about your name? Well, there's a couple of things here. So if you click this little pencil right over here, this is not intuitive, but this will take you into the edit part of your name. Now, LinkedIn changed this about 2 or 3 years ago. As opposed to former or maiden name, they put in an additional name. Now, I think former and maiden names are very important. A lot of the time, when somebody's looking for somebody whose name has changed, they won't find them because they're looking under a different name. But in addition to that, there are other names that people are known by that aren't their actual name. So my name is Chaim. That is the name that I go by. But I work with a lot of students with names like Chaim who have a secular name that people know them as. So, for example, if I wanted to go by the name Howard, and that's how people knew me, what I could do now is actually add Howard to that as an additional name. And what that's going to do is put into my profile Chaim Howard Shapiro. Therefore, people who know Howard Shapiro would be able to see that, say, oh, that's the guy that I'm looking for, and not potentially miss that. So I think it is a very important thing to be able to utilize if you have a former or a maiden name, or to use a professional nickname or the name that people know you as. Those are the kinds of things you want to be including on there. Another question I often get is you're all going to have your credentials if you don't have them. So some people want to put in, for example, a PharmD after this. So my philosophy on putting in a credential with a comma is one would be fine, but I wouldn't go more than one because it gets very, very difficult for people to follow the name once you have those things. But just be aware that putting in any additional credentials can make it more difficult for people to tag you when you have a more advanced profile and people are trying to tag you in posts. So you want to keep that limited. I'm okay with one. I would not definitely not go more than one additional credential after your name, but first name, last name. I think LinkedIn should add a credential thing here. I don't know why they don't, and I wouldn't put, for example, a doctor or rabbi or a reverend or whatever before your name. They should have something for that, but they don't. But I think one thing after your name would be fine to do. Okay. Now moving down, the most important real estate in all of social media, in my mind, is this right over here. This is your LinkedIn headline. Because if I know nothing about you besides your name and I see your photo, what is it about you that makes me want to engage with your profile? This is where you tell the people who are seeing your profile what you bring to the table that make you the person that they should be engaging. So for me, it's about LinkedIn. It's about being an author and a public speaker and a higher ed professional. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to write this with AI. But the problem is if you click that, it's going to try and sell you to upsell to get LinkedIn Premium. Don't pay LinkedIn a penny because you can simply go to ChatGPT. And you'll see here on ChatGPT, what I did here earlier today is I gave it a prompt. You are a LinkedIn expert and the hiring manager at a research hospital. Important to tell ChatGPT what it is. Create a LinkedIn headline for a graduate student in biostatistics looking for a job. And look what it gave me. Now, I don't know if we have any biostat students here today, but you could do the same thing for pharmacy, public health, whatever it is that you want. What you don't want to do is just copy it because it says it. You want to make sure that you personalize it so all the skills that you're utilizing are actually the skills that you actually have, as opposed to, just random things that sound good. I also think it's a good idea to separate different ideas with these little dashes over or posts here, because big blocks of text do not work well and people cannot see them very well on social media. So make sure to maximize that on your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn increase the amount of fonts you have, so you can usually include a nice piece of information there about what it is that you're able to do and what you can bring to the table. Now, usually I want to pause here because that's the LinkedIn triumvirate, and I want to see if anybody has any questions about your name, your profile photo, or your LinkedIn headline. I explained it all perfectly, right? Okay. So if there are no questions, I do want to move on. And I want to show you another thing. So you see here at the top, it says linkedin.com/in/Chaim Shapiro. Now, the default is not that for most folks. What happens is they'll do linkedin.com/in, some of the letters of your name, some dashes, and some other weird fonts and things that they include there. You want to try to change that as soon as you can. Go to public profile and URL, which is right over here. Click on this. And this is where you're actually able to change that right over here to your first name, last name. And once you do that and set it, it's going to change it for all time. And that's going to be a URL you can use, for example, as a signature line in your email. So if people are interested in following your profile, they can, but they don't have to. Now, Chaim Shapiro was not the most common name, so I was able to get it. Obviously, there's only one unique URL. If you can't get your name, then I think Chaim-Shapiro makes sense. Chaim_Shapiro. This could be a great place for the degree, Chaim Shapiro Master's in Education or MED. But once you get that, make sure to click the Save button, and then you have your professional URL that you can include as the signature line on your emails. Very, very powerful tool for making your LinkedIn profile look much more professional. One of the first things as a LinkedIn expert I look at when I see somebody's profile is to see if they actually have that URL. If they do, I know they've been coached well on LinkedIn. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is this background image right over here. Now, this is blank normally on your LinkedIn profile, and you don't want to leave it blank. What you want to do is have that help promote your brand. So as a person who claims he can give excellent LinkedIn workshops, here I am giving a LinkedIn presentation. These folks staring in at me really sells me in a way better than I could possibly sell myself, because it really shows people that I'm engaging the folks that I'm speaking to, which is exactly the message I want to send. So how do you create one for you? A couple of options that are free. If you go to a website called Canva, and I put here in Canva for it to create a LinkedIn background image for a student completing their PharmD. But you see here, these are a little bit too basic. Social media manager. Yeah, you could change that and put it into biostatistics or pharmacy or whatever it is, because it allows you to actually edit these, which is why I like this service. If you get a free month, you could actually edit and put in your own information. But I also like to have some images in there that help promote your brand as well. So one of the other things I did today, right before I came in here, is have ChatGPT create a background design, and for somebody who is a public health expert. So you see this? This is what it came up with. And what I would do with this is to take it and say, okay, can you focus more on X, Y, and Z, which is my area of public health expertise? Can you include my name and my contact information, my email and my phone number, so we can include that in your background image? Then once you have that, you can upload it right over here. This is where the upload happens. You can upload your picture and then move things around to get it where it needs to be. Just be aware this is a wider photo than most photos. It looks like the one they created here, I would have to input into ChatGPT to make it wider, because it might not actually have the proportions correct if I move that over. Also, be aware that your photo shows up over here on the bottom left, and there's really nothing you can do about that. So if there's something really important over here, you don't want to have that blocked by your photo. So make sure you do that. I think a personalized background image that promotes your brand really helps take you to the next level. Now, I want to pause here. Any questions? We're already 15 minutes in. I haven't had any questions. Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? Okay, so we'll keep moving along. So I'm gonna get back and finish this little section here that we started with that has your name and your LinkedIn headline. A couple of other things on here. So you see here that you have the ability to choose pronouns that best reflect your gender identity. It has she, her, he, him, they, them, or custom. Custom allows somebody to write their gender identity that's more specific, but I want to show you a trick that people have been doing recently. Now, if I write LinkedIn expert under my gender pronouns, look what happens here on my profile. Just give me a second here. Look what I did. Chaim Shapiro. Hey, I'm promoting my brand here. So do we think this is a good idea or a bad idea? I'm not sure what happened right there. We'll go back to it. But we think this is a good idea or a bad idea to do that. Somebody want to jump in? Good idea, bad idea? So I think it's a good idea from a marketing standpoint because it definitely promotes your brand. But because this is literally set up to help a marginalized community, I do not like the concept of utilizing that for other purposes because it takes away from the power of what it actually does for the folks who are utilizing it for the correct purposes, which is to show their gender identity. So I usually advise against that, even though it does make sense from the perspective of being able to promote yourself. Another tool here, as you'll see, is a name pronunciation tool. So if you come up across a name like Chaim, or if you have a name that's more difficult to pronounce, you could actually, on the mobile app, record your name. So there I am recording my name. That gives me the opportunity to show that and share it with folks who want to actually reach out to me so they actually can have a better opportunity to pronounce my name. Now, the reason I do that right after the gender identity is because a lot of people utilize that as a sales pitch. Hi, I'm Chaim Shapiro. I'm a LinkedIn expert who can provide excellent LinkedIn workshops. Again, from a marketing perspective, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I don't like it from the perspective of the fact that it takes away the value of the people who have names like Chaim, who are people are not going to be as likely to follow and complete those names and listen to it when people are adding those other things. So I think that is a great opportunity for you to put your name in, but I would not do other things. Now, another thing very important over here is to make sure to sync your industry. LinkedIn has only certain numbers of industries, which you see here. If you start putting in pharmacy, for example, there you go. You have to click one of these, even though it might not be perfect, and get the one that's closest to your profession. Make sure when you put it in here that you actually sync it with the one that it has. That'll make sure you show up in searches for people who are looking for folks who work in that particular industry. So that makes sure that I show up in searches for people who are looking for folks working in higher education. And the last part of this top part is your location. So you see here, this is an interesting thing. I have down the New York City metropolitan area, but I live in a little town called West Hempstead, New York. Anyone want to guess why I chose New York City metropolitan area instead of West Hempstead, New York? And if you're in a major city, it's not going to be an option. If you live in a suburb, it might be an option. Anyone want to guess why I did that? So let me ask you this. Anybody here that's heard of West Hempstead before right now? I'm
No.
assuming I'm assuming the answer is probably no, which is why I chose to put the New York City metropolitan area. Because if I asked how many people have heard of that, I'm guessing everybody would say that they've heard of the New York City metropolitan area. The exception to this is if you have a business in West Hempstead that you want to be promoting. But I think the bigger local area is the better way to do it. And I see there's something in the chat. Can we read the chat? Is there a question?
Yes, there's a couple of questions. You haven't gotten to some of these things yet, but I can,
Hmm?
if you want me to read them, I can.
Yeah, please.
Um, is there any tips to invite people who I don't know yet to stay connected on LinkedIn? How to make them feel comfortable in the connection with me?
Great
Uh,
question. We're going to get to that probably around 45, 40, 50 minutes into the session. We're going to get to how to send those connection requests. Great question.
Another question is I posted articles every other week, but only my
Mhm.
friends reacted to the posts.
So it's interesting. LinkedIn actually has this new thing called LinkedIn 360 Brew, and they're really changed what it is that is being shown to folks. I'm not a big believer in people trying to beat the algorithm by posting things they think will do well. Post things that add value to your community and show your expertise. And I wouldn't worry so much about who's seeing it. Sometimes it takes time to build that up. But I have posts that just completely bomb for reasons that I don't understand. And I've been doing this a very, very long time. But I just try to aim for my posts to add value and not worry as much about sort of the secondary parts of it. Great questions. Thank you so much for those. And let's keep those questions coming. Okay. Next thing I want to show you here is the contact information. Not intuitive here at all. If I hover over contact info and click on it, it takes me into another page. I got to click this little pencil, and this gives me the opportunity to have my email. Now, I'll tell you one of the biggest pet peeves that I see on LinkedIn all the time is somebody has an email from 3 jobs ago or something like that, and it's no longer their current email. This is how you change and set your primary email. This little box with the out over here, click on that. It'll take you into your settings. It might ask you for your password. But here, you can make one of your emails primary or add email addresses. When you add an email address, it will ask you to confirm it to make sure it's yours. And I have my personal email, my main email, as my primary. I've been around a long time, so I have an old AOL account from 25 years ago or so. I keep that there in case people know me by that, so people can still send connection requests to that. And I have my professional work email here as well. I just want to make sure that I have the primary one and the ones that are up here are still current, especially the primary one, because if it's not current, people who might want to send you messages off of LinkedIn can get very, very upset that they're sending it to a dead email address. You see here also that I do have my phone number for my mobile phone. Question I get, don't I get spam because of that? And the answer is yes, I do get spam, but I'd rather get some spam, which I get anyway, than miss a very, very important call. But that's a personal preference issue, what people are comfortable with. I do not include my address because I am not comfortable with people showing up at my house. I do include my birthday, but not my birth year, because that's a security question. The reason I include that is because a lot of folks send me birthday messages. It's a great engagement opportunity. So when people see it's Chaim's birthday, by the way, someone's asking about connection, it's a great way for me to respond. Say, hey, by the way, remember I talked to you about coming in for a LinkedIn presentation? You know what? A great birthday gift would be to hire me as a consultant or something like that, which is why I include that. Okay. So that is the contact information and all the information here at the top of your profile, from the part from your LinkedIn triumvirate to your contact information, your LinkedIn URL, your background image, your profession, and all of those things. If there are no questions, I want to move down to open to work, which is a little bit more controversial in terms of whether you should or shouldn't do this. Now, if you don't see open to work on your profile, the little open to button allows you to set it. If I click this little pencil, it'll show you here that I am open to career development positions. But I'm very, very happy. I've been at Turo for 18 and a half years. I really firmly hope that I can finish my career at Turo. But if somebody offers me $1 million to go somewhere else, I would definitely consider that. So I have this down as flexible. I'm casually looking. And if somebody reaches out to me with an offer that's incredible, I will definitely want to hear that as opposed to not having that open. Okay. But I have mine set to recruiters only. Only people who are using LinkedIn Recruiter platform, which is a paid platform, can see that I'm looking. Turo can't see that I'm looking. Only people on LinkedIn Recruiter. Now, if you want to put and make sure everyone sees it, you click all LinkedIn members, and look what this is going to do. The save button, and it's going to add a little tag around my profile photo that says open to work. Let's see if it did it. It should have done it. There it is. Open to work. And that way, everybody out there can see when they see my profile that I am open to work. Now, I will tell you that the majority of LinkedIn experts think if you're looking for a job, it makes sense to include open to work here. I'm in the minority. I would say about 35% of us don't want you to put it there. Not because there's anything to be ashamed of because you're looking for a job, but because I don't want it to be the first thing that people see in your triumvirate. The first thing about you isn't that you're looking for a job. The first thing about you is this great stuff down over here. So I don't want people to see that as the first thing. But again, I think the majority of LinkedIn experts would advise you to do it. In any event, even if you do not have it open to work set to everybody, you definitely want to have it set to LinkedIn recruiters. I'm going to talk about that in a moment or two. But if you're not set to recruiters only, you're not going to show up on the recruiter platform, and people who are looking to hire from companies are not going to be able to see you. I'll talk about a couple other things that show up on the recruiter platform in a couple of minutes. But if you're looking for a job or even casually, make sure to have it set open to, at the very least, recruiters. According to me, I wouldn't have it open to with a frame. According to most LinkedIn experts, you can definitely do that if you would like to. Another thing over here, open to volunteer. This is like the community service on your resume. They added this about a year and a half ago. So you can see here that I tell people I'm willing to help with education and veteran support and provide LinkedIn training for those things. And it shows folks who are looking at your profile that you're willing to go beyond the call of duty, just what you're doing in class, and you're willing to help folks. And I think it's a nice little additive thing to add to your LinkedIn profile. Any questions about open to work or about open to volunteer? I want to move on to your about section. Now, you might not see about section. If you don't have it, go to add profile section, and it'll give you the ability to add that. I believe it's under the core, but I have mine on here already. You want to add an about section. It used to be called the summary, But there are a couple of very important things to point out about this. So it can be hard to format it and get this exactly right. But back in the day, we used to talk about the top fold of the New York Times that everybody saw in the actual newspaper box. And if you flip the fold over below the fold, you lost about half of your audience. You want to make sure your most important stuff is up here at the top where anyone can see it, because only the most dedicated people who are really interested in reaching out to you will click the see more button to see the rest of it. Now, this is highly searchable, so you can include other things here. Make sure to lead off with your most important stuff. Even more importantly now is they give you the ability to put your top 5 skills on your about section. The skill section is much further down the profile. This gives you the opportunity to highlight that much higher up. So you see here, these are my top 5 skills. I have it in the order I want people to see it. I always want to put my first and best stuff first, second, third, but that way people can see that right away. Another important thing about this, those people who are using the recruiter platform, right? You're open to work, they see that. They also see these top 5 skills. So you want to make sure when they see your top 5 skills on their dashboard, they won't have to log down to here. You want to make sure that they see that your skills are the ones that sell you as a biostatistician, as a public health professional, as a pharmacist. Those are very, very important. Now, just to complete that loop, 2 other things that show up on the profile, on platform when they're using that platform, is if they work for a company, let's say Eli Lilly is the company that I chose for today. They want to make sure that you're following the company. So if you go to the companies you're interested in and you want to find jobs at, click the follow button, then you will be following them, and that will satisfy that part of it. They actually can see when you started following them. So start following the companies you might be interested in now because you don't want to make it look like you just started following them the day before. The other thing they want to see is there's at least one person at the company that you are connected to. When we talk a little bit more about connection requests, be connected to people at the company. Those things are what's going to stand out to people using the recruiter platform. So again, having that open to work set, making sure you're highlighting those 5 skills, you're following the company and connected to at least one person at that company will shoot you up in terms of the rankings for people who are using LinkedIn recruiter platform. Any questions about that or anything we've spoken about so far? Okay, so another thing you can do here is add a featured section. Again, if you don't have it, go to add profile section. So again, as a person who claims I can give LinkedIn workshops that are great, I don't just say that. Here is the last workshop I gave a couple of months ago. People can click on this and get right into the YouTube video. Plus button is how you add things. You add a post, add a link, add media. You can even add, for example, your resume here, which I do have. I show all the featured ones. But you want to make sure your most important things are first, second, third, because very, very few folks, oh, that died on me there. Very few folks are going to be scrolling down. But you can include a document which would include your resume, and people can actually see it and then download it onto your computer. Let me try to go back to that because my computer just died on me for a second there. If I go back to the featured section, I'll show you how to put the resume in there. But this could be presentations you gave, PowerPoints. It could be testimonials from folks about things that you've done. Those are all things that you can include in that section. And just to show you the resume, because I don't have it up here very high because I'm not looking for a job. But if I have my resume up there, people who are looking at my profile can actually open it in Acrobat or actually download it directly onto their desktop over here, then send it to the folks who might not be as adept at LinkedIn as they are. So it's a great way of making sure that you have your featured information out there. People are very visual, so I recommend having good stuff there in your featured section that people can see and engage with. So this was a conference presentation I gave last year, and this is my last LinkedIn workshop. Very important to take advantage of that. Okay, moving along, moving down, I want to show you your work experience. Couple of things to point out here. So these are jobs that you currently have. You see here that I've been working at Turo, as I said, 18 and a half years. You see this continuity line? So I'm going to show you how to do that if you had multiple positions in the same place, but also how to make sure you have the logo and you're synced to your company. So if we go to the little pencil over here, then I click on this pencil again. First thing I want to do is make sure this is toggled to off if I'm making changes. If this is set to on, sometimes you can make a slight change and it tells everyone you got a new job, even though you've been at that company for a long time. Now look at this. I'm at Turo. Look what happens if I get rid of the Y. Look at that. See that? It got rid of the logo. That means the logo won't show up on my profile, number one. And number two, people looking for Turo alumni or people working at Turo won't actually see me under that list. Make sure to sync it with the company you're currently working in and their actual profile. And then down over here is where you can add your bullets. For some reason, I do not understand at all. LinkedIn does not have a bullet feature. They totally should, but I just cut and paste right off of my resume, made it as best as I can. The other thing to point out here is you want to include your skills under each of your job and work experiences. The reason this is important is when somebody's looking at your profile and like, oh yeah, this is somebody interesting. He has career services skills. Well, how long has he had those skills or she had those skills? So the assumption is if they have it under the job, and I've been in this job for 18 years, that I have 18 years experience in that. So it's important to make sure to have those skills there so they can see you have 2 or 3 years experience in those skills. And again, you want to highlight the skills that are most important for your particular brand. You're not limited to five. You can add more here. And again, that'll be highly searchable for them. And just to close the loop here, one of the other things you can do is to show that continuity. You see, I started this position, the new position, July 2023. And to make sure this continuity line, this ended July 2023. It could be 1 month off, but if it go more than that, it actually will probably separate it into two separate jobs and it won't show the continuity going straight up and down on your work experience. Okay. Another question I get very, very frequently is how far back should your work experience go? So my philosophy on this is not like your resume. You're not limited in terms of space. So I have a job back here that I had when I was in college, making $5 an hour back when George H.W. Bush was president. Here we go, starting in 1992. And I like the fact that people can see back in, I was hauling furniture and doing those things back in the day, and I built myself up from there. The reason not to do this is if you're afraid that somebody is going to use your age against you. If somebody sees I was working for 4 years already from 1992 to 96, they'll be like, oh, Chaim's got to be older. And even though ageism is illegal, there are people who will utilize that against you. If you're concerned about that, is when I would take off the older stuff. But, I'm not looking for a job and it's about promoting myself. So it really doesn't matter for me. Okay. Any questions about work experience? So education is very, very similar. Just make sure you sync it with your educational experience. So if you go into University of California, Riverside, make sure the autocomplete actually syncs it. See that? Got rid of the logo. Click again, UCR, and that way I show up as an alum at that institution. You can also include some activities and things here back in the day when I was a speaker of the Student Senate and chairman of different committees. So those are all things you can include on your LinkedIn profile under your education section. Any questions so far? So I'll keep moving along to your skills section. You see here, it shows two skills. It's off far here. It shows two skills at the top. You can include up to 100 skills on here, and it's important to include the skills that are relevant to your profession because they're highly searchable. But you also want to make sure your top two show up over here. Now, you can add skills and you can move the skills around by clicking that little pencil. This is how you reorder skills. So I can go in here, reorder, and if I wanted to move, let's say some personal branding to the top, because that's the one I want them to see, drag and drop, that's going to move that to the top, and then it moves the other things down. But I think the two that you really want people to see are the ones you want to have there at the top. And when we're done, after I'm done today, I'll move LinkedIn back to that top thing. But again, very, very highly searchable. Now, people always ask me, what skills should I be including on my LinkedIn profile? And the way you actually add those skills is by clicking the little plus button by your skills over here. Where did that go? There we go. Little plus button right over here. And it gives you the opportunity to do some searches and add skills. So I'm just going to put this in here. Not that I have these skills because I want to show you something here. It gives you the opportunity at one time when you put in the skill to show all of the places you utilized it. So I can click any of these. But I click talent management and save it, it's going to sync it to all of those jobs as opposed to going through those jobs individually. Couple of tricks for finding out which information you want to be including here. So again, I think ChatGPT is a very, very good friend of yours over here. So you see here, one of the things that I did is put in a request for the top 75 skills that somebody who is looking for a job as a pharmacist should include in their LinkedIn profile. And there it goes. It gave me 75 of them. So not to just grab the ones that are here because they look good, but the ones that you have, this could be an excellent guide towards the ones you should be including on your LinkedIn profile. But there's one other hack I want to show you. Remember, I showed you Eli Lilly before. If I go back to Eli Lilly's page, I can actually see what got people hired at the companies that I'm targeting. So I go to Eli Lilly's page. Again, I'm following them. I go to their company page and sort of follow the bouncing ball here because this is something you guys will have to follow along. Okay. Now, if I go down here to where it says people, click on people, and it's going to show me some data about the people that are on here. If I push this twice, once, twice, it actually shows me the skills the people at that company have that have gotten them hired. So you see here it has pharmaceutics, leadership, Microsoft Excel. So that's a little bit too basic for me, I think, because it doesn't tell me enough about what they want to be included. Now, I can change this based on people who are doing engineering or research, but here's another thing you can actually do here is search based on your school to see what it is that got people at your school hired at those companies. So I'm going to put in Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and it's going to show me the skills here that people that work at that company put down that they have, and these are the things that got them hired. Again, pharmaceutics, healthcare, and it could change that based on that. I usually tell people if you're interested in 4 or 5 companies, try to triangulate around different things that give you a better idea of what the people there got them hired. Also, great opportunity because this actually shows me the alumni from your institution who are right here. And this is my opportunity to follow up with them. Somebody asked about connection requests, and we'll get to that in a moment. But when you hit the connect button, we'll talk about this. Add a personalized note. One of the problems is LinkedIn has limited you to like 3 per month of that. But personalizing the note, hi from a fellow alum of the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. I want to reach out to you about the application process at Eli Lilly or something like that, and add that note when you send it, because that'll make it much more likely they're going to be one to receive that. I do not like that LinkedIn has severely limited the number of those that you can send per month because it really hurts the people who need it the most. But, I don't control LinkedIn as of yet. Maybe someday when I take over, they'll actually let me do that. Okay. The last thing I want to show you here on the profile, and usually we're about 40 minutes, is recommendations. And you do want to have recommendations on your LinkedIn profile. And the recommendations shouldn't be from your roommate or something like that. It should be for somebody like the college professor, head of the department, a dean. It could be a previous boss. And the way you get a LinkedIn recommendation added to your profile, click the plus button, ask for a recommendation. Start typing in the name of whomever it is that you're interested. You need to be a first degree connection with that person. I'm just going to pick this person for the sake of argument because I want to show you what happens when you click continue. Okay, where do you know the person and your position? This is the important part. If you send this, you're probably going to get ignored. If I was to send somebody a request and say, you know something? Hi, Gene. Want you to write a specific LinkedIn recommendation that describes how I'm able to give excellent LinkedIn workshops for the one that you attended that I gave at your college. That right there is a much more powerful message and much more likely to be accepted. But again, they don't have to write it, but they can. Just so you know, when somebody submits this, you have to approve it before it's posted to your profile. Nobody can post a recommendation to your profile without your permission. And you have to approve what they write. Now, let's say somebody writes something and Amy wrote a very, very good profile recommendation for me. Let's say I want to go in there and say, Amy, can you focus this and change it slightly? If I click this little pencil right over here, I can send her a message and say, hey, Amy, thank you so much for the recommendation. Do you mind mentioning how interactive the session was or something like that? Then the choice goes to Amy. She can either decide to do that or not do that. If she does it, then I need to reapprove it before it goes up, or it'll just keep this old one up over here. One of the things I don't like is this sorts by the most recent, not by the most important. And I think they should allow you to drag and drop the most important and best recommendations at the top, but they don't let you currently do that. I do think it's a good idea to get to between 3 to 5 recommendations on your profile. I personally believe that's going to get you and move you up in the search rankings a little bit when you get more than three or so recommendations. But again, recommendations, you need to be connected to the person, number one. And number two, you got what do you call it? You want to have somebody that's of value. So somebody like a professor or a dean or somebody that you work for. And that is the basics of the LinkedIn profile. There are a couple other sections you can always add that could be relevant for folks. Add profile sections here. So, license and certifications can be very important for folks in your professions, projects, the things you're working on, courses. If I go under here under core, you'll see here services and skills we already have. Under additional, I had a client once with a patent, which was really, really cool. Honors and awards. Test scores doesn't mean 99 on your, midterm in pharmacology. It'd be referring to things like on the CPA exam or something like that. But personalizing it based on what sells you is really important. So you see, I have my services right over here. I have my down over here. You're going to see my certifications, license and certifications, but I think sell me better than a lot of other things, and that can be very much personalized. So I want to pause here before I move on to looking for jobs because I spoke a lot and I didn't get many questions.
So there was
Any
one other
questions about
question. There was
what's
one other
that?
question in the chat. There was one
Yes,
other
please.
question in the chat.
Mhm.
I don't spend money to obtain a premium account. What can I do to reach out to more people who are working in the fields I would like to join?
Great question. So LinkedIn Premium is something that LinkedIn unfortunately is trying to make it more and more impossible to use effectively without actually reaching out and paying for that money. And I tell people not to do it. Usually, once a year, LinkedIn will give you a 2 week free trial. So I recommend getting that free trial for 2 weeks, but have the people you want to connect to ready to go before you set that profile for the 2 weeks. That way you can send an unlimited number not worry about running into that total. So that's one way of doing it. Yeah, I don't like the fact that LinkedIn limits this because it hurts the people that need it the most. I'll try to show you in a few minutes. And one of the other things you can do is when you find somebody that you're interested in connecting with, if they're part of groups, if you join the same group that they're part of, you can send them messages for free up to I think 25 or 30 per month. So if we have time at the end, I'll show you how to do that once I show you how to engage folks on LinkedIn. Great question. We'll get into the job search board here on LinkedIn because I really like how the job search board works. For those who have been in my previous sessions, this has changed because now they actually allow you to add a skill and it's more AI based in terms of searching for jobs. But you see here, I put in a pharmacist in Boston, Massachusetts. I did this a little bit earlier today. And it says, show me the split screen right over here, jobs here on the left and about the jobs on the right. Now, the reason I like this so much is because one of the things that it does is it shows me my connections to people at these jobs. Let me click on this one right over here. Now I go over to the right where it's showing me more information. If I scroll down, it should, there we go. It shows me that I have alumni from my institution who work in that company. So what I could do is let's see who those folks are. I could reach out to some of these folks and say, "Hey, Matthew or Irene, we're both UCR alumni. Do you mind helping me get a job or how to transverse the process at this company?" It can also show you people. If you're connected directly to a person at that company, they'll show you that as well. So there's a lot of great ways to utilize this to turn a cold lead into a warm lead here on LinkedIn. One of the other things that I think is very important to do is you got to play around with these to get the exact search terms to get the jobs you're looking for. Once you get those, set an alert. It'll send you an alert every time something new matches those criteria. So you don't need to go back to this every day or two looking for those jobs. Again, you want to find the search terms to get the kinds of jobs you're looking for. And that can mean that it's remote or the schedule or it's in person or it's a certain level. But once you get those, set that alerts so you get those alerts on a regular basis and that way you could actually get and follow up with any jobs whenever you get them. Some of these have what are called easy apply. We can apply on LinkedIn, or sometimes it will actually take you onto the website from the company itself to allow you to apply there. If you're actually scrolling, you could actually on your phone save this and you can actually go back to that later to show you where that ends up after you save a job. It should end up on your profile. Let's see here. Should be over here. Why is it not showing up? Hmm, that was weird. Usually it's under the analytics, but I guess somehow that I flubbed this today. But it should show up on your profile where you should be able to see it and get to it later. I'm sorry for not getting that. Now it's going to bother me for the rest of the day. But usually it shows up right over there, and I'm not sure why it's not. Okay. In any event, you could save it and get back to it a little bit later, and then go back to it and make sure that you're actually able to apply for those jobs. I wonder if they moved it. Now this is going to bother me. Maybe they moved the saved. That's right. They moved the saved items over here to the right. That's why. Yeah. One of these LinkedIn changes, save items is over here now. And this is where that job is, and I can go back to later. Sorry for that. That does happen on occasion when you're doing live demos, and I can go back to whatever jobs I saved and actually go in there and then either apply for it or unsave it, and then it's no longer something that's on my desktop. Okay. Any questions about applying for jobs before I go into how to engage folks for the last few minutes? So a couple of ways of engaging people. So you can search based on topics. Now I chose prescription prices, which is something which is near and dear to my heart. Now, once I do this, let's see what happens here. Go to where it says posts. These are people who are posting based on these search terms. You're going to need to play around with the search terms that show the information and the conversations that are happening in your field, the ones where the people who are the most important difference makers are talking about. Once you find those things, what you can do is go in and engage the people who are posting about it. That does a couple of things. First of all, it gives me the opportunity to demonstrate my expertise about prescription prices. I read what Kimberly wrote here and then go in right over there and follow up on their post and say, now watch this. Click the comment button. First thing I want to do is click the at button because I can tag Kimberly. That way she's going to get a notification that I tagged her and write something that really shows you understand what she's talking about. Because this is a great way to engage a person before you send them the connection requests. Blind and cold connection requests can be effective when you have the personalized connection request. If you've built a reputation and experience with the person, it's even better and makes it even easier for you to reach out to those folks. So what I would do here is put something about whatever it is that she wrote. That gives me the opportunity to really engage her and show and demonstrate that expertise. And again, if you're commenting on the things that are the issues that are being discussed in conferences or in your classrooms, chances are the people who are of importance are going to be posting those things on a regular basis. This gives you the opportunity to engage with those folks. Now, just to show you based on the question before, let's assume Kimberly is somebody that I really, really want to engage because of the job she has. So I found her first. Let's assume that's the way it worked. Couple of things you can do. If I found Kimberly and I didn't know she posted, I can scroll down on her profile. If I scroll down over here, I can actually see her activity. So these are the posts she's done recently. So it's not based on the fact that I did that search term, but I could see that 11 hours ago she posted this. This gives me the opportunity to find something she posted that I'm really an expert on. Let me scroll back and let's say I'm really an expert on profits over patients. Then I can engage her on that specific topic. So you can be checking this on a semi-regular basis for the person that you found in order to engage them, build that reputation. And then when you send the connection request, oh, yeah, I know Chaim Shapiro. He's the person who's been commenting some great things about patients over profits or something like that. The other thing you can do, and I usually don't do this, but I'll do it based on the question, is if she is part of any groups, and it looks like she is, if I go to her groups, if I click on the group, and you have to click join the group. But what happens when you join a group is you can actually view the people in the group and send them messages. First thing you need to join the group. Then usually there's a 3-day waiting list. So what they don't want people doing is sending spam messages, just following a group for 5 minutes and then getting out of it. But this is to show you my groups that I'm currently part of. If I go into the ACPA commission here, and it'll show me here all the people who are in this group. And even though this is a second degree connection, I can message this person for free because we're in the same group. So that's a way of getting around the total that they limit you to 3 or 5 or whatever it is per month. I think they limited to 25 or 30, but join that group. Again, there will be a 2 or 3 day waiting list, which I agree with 100%. You don't want people joining groups just to spam folks. So join the group, and that gives you the opportunity to engage those folks who are of real value to you. So just to reiterate and go over that again, the idea is you can do the searches based on the topics, play around with it to get the topic that really demonstrates your expertise in the things that people in your field are talking about. But if you have a specific person you want to target, there are a number of ways you can find them, what they're posting on, find where your expertise fits with what they're posting, and then engage them on that. And the worst case scenario, if you can't have the opportunity to send the personalized collection request, what you can then do is follow them in their groups. If they're part of groups, join the group. Then 2 or 3 days later, you have free reign to send them a message up to about 25 or 30 per month. Does that make sense? Any questions about anything we've spoken about so far? Because there's one more thing I want to show you, and I want to keep the last 5 minutes for questions in general. One of the things you should also be doing on a regular basis is posting. So, posting, somebody mentioned this before, where they're posting their own content. This is where you show your expertise. You go over here, and let's say you find an article in a journal and you include that link. You could post your thoughts on it to demonstrate how well you understand it. It's all about adding value in these posts. So you're not just saying, what you had for lunch. You're saying, I was reading an article about difficulties with different kinds of things in pharmacy prices based on Trump's new website. Here are my thoughts on it that demonstrate my expertise. Click the post button. People can see that and engage you, and you're building your expertise. But I think the idea is, how often should you post? If you have things of value to add, post. Don't post just to post. And don't worry about the algorithm. Post things that add value and show and demonstrate your expertise on a regular basis. And there's all sorts of funky things you could add here. You could do polls. You could add that you got a job or something like that, say a work anniversary or a job, add photos. These are all things you can do. And I try to post on a regular basis. So that's where you get noticed by folks. But yes, sometimes it's very, very frustrating because you're posting all great stuff and people aren't following it. And the ways of the LinkedIn algorithm are very, very strange. Yes. Is there a question?
Yeah, there's one question about, is there a good time to post?
So personally, I can't prove this because my philosophy is that you just post things of value. I tend to find early on in the business day is a good time. I try to get my posts in about 8:45 a.m. on a weekday. I find for me that works best. I'm not going to go by anyway say Chaim Shapiro said post at 8:45 a.m. every morning or whatever. I found those tend to be my most successful posts because people are just getting into work. They're starting to, they're firing up their computers. They've been in for half an hour and they're so, oh, you know what? Let me check LinkedIn to see what's going on. And I do think that does help when it comes to that. But again, just post and add value and don't worry so much about the time. There's another question there, I think. Andrea?
Yes. Hi, thank you. Question is, what is your opinion on reposting like articles that or
Hmm. Yeah.
reposting things that other people think is important and you really like it and or agree with it and then repost it?
Yeah, great. So you see here, actually, this is something somebody did right over here. This person over here saw a post she liked and she put her own comments on it and posted it over there. Now, the way you do that is the repost button right over here and repost with your thoughts or just repost. Now, I would never repost something without my thoughts. I always include my thoughts, though the philosophy is in the LinkedIn world. Again, the ways of the algorithm are very, very, strange, but usually reposts don't do as well as posts that are original. So what you can do as opposed to reposting somebody, and you might get a little bit of a better kind of response to it, is to copy the link to the post and make it your own post. And because it doesn't go through the repost, it tends to do better. Again, I can't prove that. That's what I personally believe. So what I would do here is write whatever it is I'm going to write about this, include that, and it'll give that link. But because it's not a repost, it'll tend to do better. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
My pleasure. Other questions? So I want to show you one more thing. Also, something you should be doing on a regular basis. Look who's viewed your profile. If somebody has viewed your profile, that is a buy signal. They're interested in you. Now, another thing LinkedIn is doing to try to get people to buy premium, they limit this to 3 now. And you might have to scroll down further on your page. I have LinkedIn Premium. But you see here, I see usually for most folks, the last 3 folks have viewed my profile. Is this somebody? Yeah, somebody who was in the session right now. So this gives me an opportunity to connect to this person, send her a personalized connection request, thanking her for coming to my session, and tell I would put the date in it as well, because that way, if I ever reach out to her again, let's say in 3 or 5 years, I know where we met and how we met. But check this on a regular basis because it only shows three for free. And these are buy signals from the folks who actually checked your profile. Just so you know, you have to actually have it set on your profile that people can see who you are, or you won't be able to see who they are. If somebody has it on private mode, even if you're paying for premium, you cannot see who they are. So you see someone at Baruch College looked at my profile, they had that set to private. There's nothing I can pay for to get to be able to see that. Does that make sense? Okay, so I have about 3 minutes left. I want to pause for any questions about anything about LinkedIn. Any questions about anything we talked about, your profile, or anything that you've always wanted to ask about LinkedIn but were afraid to ask?
Oh, so I have a question.
Please.
So I didn't post anything before.
Mhm.
So like I'm wondering what is the best things I can post from the first time?
Great question. So if you're posting for the first time, I don't necessarily believe in saying this is my first post. Some people like to do that, and it doesn't hurt necessarily, but it's all about adding value. What are you majoring in? Or what is your graduate school in?
Oh, it's Farm D.
PharmD.
Yeah.
So what are you studying now? What are there things in journals you can post about or articles that are out there that you can post about and demonstrate your expertise so that people who see it say, oh, that person really knows what they're talking about in the field and in the areas that are most important in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Just get
Well,
out there and do it. Start posting. And again, you know what? Don't worry if you're not getting the reception it deserves or it needs. It's part of the game. I don't know why some of them work, some of them don't. It's just one of those things. LinkedIn is constantly changing the algorithm. It's about dwell time now, and it's about developing an expertise. And everybody has contradictory advice as to what it is that gets more views and doesn't. Other questions, please. Anything else I can show you?
I have another question on sending
Yes.
out like I have like the three free
Hmm.
requests or connections. Um, you said earlier you should like look up and see where you connect somewhere and find something and be like, hey, I know you're interested in this. Can you help me connect with this? Um, do you have a timeline and when you follow up on something, or do you not follow up if you don't get anything back and just start connecting or trying to connect to others?
Yeah. So I think, for example, if you want to connect with me, the best time to do it is right now. Because if you do it in 3 days, I'm not going to remember where you are, what the context was. So if you meet somebody at a conference or something, try to follow up as quickly as you can with a personalized message. Again, and if you engage somebody, it could be, if you want to build a reputation for commenting, it can make sense to engage them a couple of times. That's more of a strategic kind of thing. But if you meet somebody at an event, usually the sooner the better. And yes, if you can personalize it, that's better because that syncs to their messages and they'll be able to see that context 3, 5, 10 years down the road. Great question.
And then
Other questions? Yeah, go
if
ahead.
it's just an addition to that one,
Hmm.
if it's not that you didn't meet them through a conference or anything, you're just like, okay, um, you're popping up on my side the whole time because you're the same interest field that I am. So I would like to connect to you. And then if like there's nothing else that connects us at that
Right.
point. So if you start reaching out and then be like, okay, now I've reached out and I don't get anything back. So I
Oh,
know
so you don't hear
I'm
back
not
from them.
taking,
Yeah.
yes.
So
When do I
that's a
follow
little
up
more
on that?
complicated. Yeah. So that happens a lot, by the way, because people it could mean that they rejected it. It could mean that they actually they didn't accept it or whatever it is. So it's a little bit hard to figure out where that is over here. But under my network, one of the things you can do is see your sent connections. Now you can't see the ones that people are that are currently pending. But what it does let you do is see the ones that you sent. Let me see if I can find that really quickly here. So I'm just going to accept this, and it should be. I don't know why it's not showing it here. Manage my connections. It should be my sent connections should show up over here on the right, but it's not. All right, again, I didn't practice this before, but usually you can see the connections that you sent to folks. connect with me afterwards. I'll show you how to do that. But sometimes they could be up there for 2 or 3 months. And what you can do is actually take one of them down and resend it if it wasn't already rejected. Oh, here it is, manage. That's why I didn't see it. Manage. And here are my sent connection requests. So if there's somebody on here that I sent a connection to request a long time ago and they haven't accepted it, what I can do is go in here and withdraw it. And I can't send them another one for 3 weeks, but in 3 weeks I can go and reach out again and try to renew that. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Other questions?
There was a question, what types of posts can be more popular, professional ones or related to their experience?
Well, I think experience things you can include when you sort of build a brand. I think you want to focus much more on the professional side because LinkedIn is a professional networking website. So that's really what you want to be focusing on 99.9% of the time. I have a little bit of a more leeway, I think, because I've been doing this a really, really long time. And sometimes I put up some personal things that I'm doing or things that I'm thinking about. But generally, to build your brand, you want to be focusing on the most professional kinds of things that sells you as an expert in your field and look for things that add value to your network. Other questions? There's something in the chat. Was that
Yeah, that was the last one.
okay, great.
Any other final questions? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Chaim, for presenting all this great information. Hopefully everyone got at least one takeaway of something they can do
I
differently.
shoot for
Hopefully
a
more
lot more
than
than
one.
one. Hopefully, yeah.
I know. My goal is always at least one, so
At least well, at least we'll go with the at least, yes.
yeah, at least one. One new item or new strategy about how to use your LinkedIn. So thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna stop
Thank you
this.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.